A very merry hello to you, my fellow scented travellers. Welcome back to another episode of Making Scents Make Sense, the podcast that's all about demystifying the wonderful world of scent in a way that is fun and accessible without snobbery, gatekeeping, or any BS. I am Thomas Dunkley and I'm your host, and today we're going on a trek, but not just any trek, a ScentTrek. That's right, get your car keys and snake-proof boots on because we're going deep into the unknown to capture new smells and make them into perfume. Well, actually, we're not going to do that. We're going to leave that to the professionals, like my guest, who has experienced traversing the globe and deploying ScentTrek technology to take olfactory snapshots of nature and turn them into perfume. But before we get into that, it's the last episode of season 2, and what a season it's been. Over the last 13 episodes, we've explored the world of scent through discussions with perfumers, brand founders, couturiers, packaging designers, content creators, and more. For me, it has been an absolute joy, and I've learned so much from some wonderful, wonderful people. As it's the end of the season and almost the end of the year, I wanted to briefly talk about some of my favourite fragrance launches from the last 12 months. It has been another busy and productive year for the perfume industry with thousands upon thousands of launches. Now look, I haven't been able to smell everything, and I doubt any single human on the planet has, but out of the fragrances I've sniffed, here are 3 of my favourites. First up is Purpose 50 from Omani brand Amouage. Now this is part of Amouage's exceptional X-ray collection and is poured at a whopping 50% concentration of perfume oils. It's created by the legendary Givaudan perfumer Quentin Biche, and Purpose 50 is taking the sharp, glittering frankincense vetiver combination of the original Purpose and intensifying it, folding in sandalwood and vanilla to create a lactonic warmth. Now, when I say this is the most gloriously enveloping perfume, I really mean it. It's glittery and sparkly in that way that frankincense always is, but then it's very creamy and comforting with a really unusual sourness to it. The trail also can be seen from space. It's a fragrance that follows you for miles, and I don't think I've ever had more attention from people than when I'm wearing this fragrance. I actually wore it when I was doing some shopping earlier in the year, and I got a bit warm walking around in a big coat, and I popped into Gymshark, and the sales assistant literally burst into the changing rooms to ask me what my fragrance was. Luckily for everyone involved, I had not started to try anything on yet, so there was no embarrassment, but it really does drive people a little bit crazy. So that's an absolute standout for me this year because it's just so intense and glorious and resplendent. A real luxurious perfume, and because it's poured at 50%, it's probably going to last me several lifetimes. The second fragrance I want to talk about is from Jil Sander, and it's called Smoke. And Smoke comes from Jil Sander's exciting new collection, which is called Olfactory Series 1. And this is a really fantastic and distinct collection, and every single one of the fragrances is worth trying. What I really like about this collection is it all feels very considered with a very distinct vision. Each scent is capturing something in nature, from honey to earth to tea, using upcycled materials and a mixture of synthetics and naturals throughout. The bottles are also really beautiful and innovative, with a cloth-shaped glass bottle fully encased in a white cap. It's just really smart, very cohesive, feels very well thought out, and I like that. But the standout for me in that collection was Smoke. This was created by perfumer Berenice Watteau, and it captures the idea of clean laundry drying by a fire. So it uses glistening soapy aldehydes as a contrast to cedar and cade to create the idea of clean smoke. It's really unusual and utterly wearable. The idea of dry wood smoke softened by the concept of laundry musks and aldehydes, and then conversely, soapy laundry smells being elevated and made luxurious by wood smoke. I think it's really, really clever, and I like that, what we would think of as quite a functional smell of clean laundry, something that doesn't smell luxurious, is really elevated in this perfume. It fascinates me, mostly because it is really utterly wearable, but it also feels like something that Comme des Garçons would have made back in the day. And that's a real compliment. It's really innovative, it's a little bit challenging, it's very unique. I love it. I think if you smell one thing from the 3 that I'm talking about here, go and get your nose on Smoke. My third and final favourite is from the French grooming brand Horace, and it's called L'etiquette. Firstly, let's start off by saying it's an absolute bargain. When we think the Amouage is, I think, about £425, this is £62 for 50ml, so complete bargain. And it was launched earlier this year as a limited edition collaboration with French magazine L'etiquette, from which the fragrance obviously takes its name. And it's a really a thoroughly modern lavender, I would say, with a bit of a twist. So it has this beautifully fresh, crystalline lavender with some juniper gin fizz up top. Then this really novel cigarette smoke accord that doesn't give the impression of smoke, but gives the impression of freshly opened packets of cigarettes. You know, that really specific smell of the tobacco in the cardboard and on the foil? It's less smoke and more pre-smoked. It's before a cigarette is lit. It's that freshly opened pack of cigarettes. I just think it's a really handsome and elegant fragrance, and I imagine a very suave Parisian man opening up a pack of Givaudan outside a cafe. He's impeccably dressed, his hair swooped perfectly into place. He's ridiculously handsome, and to be honest, I find him a bit annoying because of this, but at least he smells exceptional. This was originally launched as a limited edition, but it was so popular that Horace have made it a permanent to their collection, which is great because I think, commenting on their Instagram posts quite regularly saying, "Bring it back, you cowards." And I like to think that helped. I really do. A little bit of light bullying sometimes does help. I kid, of course. Anyway, that's just a taster of some of my olfactory highlights of the year. I will be sharing my full top 10 over on my Instagram at Making Sense Make Sense later this week. So do watch out for that if you want to hear about more fragrances I loved this year. Anyway, let's get back to the episode and the task at hand and today's guest. For the final episode of season 2, I am speaking with Master Perfumer Sonia Constant. Sonia works at Givaudan and has created iconic fragrances for brands like Mugler, Tom Ford, Narciso Rodriguez, and many, many more. She's also the only female Master Perfumer to have created her own brand, the unique Ella K, which is a brand rich in storytelling where Sonia travels the world capturing the olfactory landscape of beautiful places and turning them into perfume. Sonia and I talk about some of her iconic creations, such as Tom Ford's masterful ombre leather, the leather fragrance that got me into leather fragrances and turned me into somewhat of a leather daddy, and how the creative process differs for her when creating for her own brand in comparison to creating for others. We also talk about Givaudan's ScentTrek technology, which is Givaudan's version of Headspace, and how she utilizes it when traveling to capture scents from the real world. We have such an interesting chat, and it's a perfect conversation to round off season 2. So let's not delay further and get right into it after a very quick word from our sponsors. This episode of Making Sense Make Sense is sponsored by Carium. Walking into a perfume store can sometimes be an overwhelming and intimidating experience, with enthusiastic sales staff and a huge amount of choice. Or at least it used to be, because Carium are looking to disrupt and change how we explore fragrance in store. Carium represents the future of fragrance discovery, blending technology, creativity and emotion. It makes finding a fragrance feel like a personal journey and not a sales pitch. Carium have partnered with 2 iconic London stores to make discovering fragrance an easy and interactive experience. The technology made its UK debut in June 2025 with an exclusive partnership with Thameen London, showcased in a Selfridges London pop-up. It's now a permanent feature at the Thameen counter, and customers can explore key fragrances in the range using Carium, the scent sommelier. But the Carium technology has been developed to work in all fragrance settings and recently launched at Parfum La Danse in Richmond, a boutique founded by acclaimed perfume critic Derya Turkan. Here, customers can explore a finely curated selection of fragrances across multiple niche brands, with Carium's innovative AI tech, powered by a large language model, guiding them in their discovery. You can find Carium's The Scent Sommelier in both stores, so why not pay a visit and let Carium help you discover your next favourite fragrance. Sonia, I've been following your work for many years now, so it's an absolute pleasure to have you on the podcast. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. And one of the things I'm always really interested to explore with perfumers is how their relationship with smell developed. How important was smell to you growing up?
Yes, smell has always been my first language, indeed. As a child, I was an hypersensitive. So the scent of my Master Perfume, the garden after the rain, the wax of my crayons. Smell was a way of feeling life more intensely, of keeping memories. And it was for me the way to go to my sensibility, to my emotion. Important for me since the beginning.
Yeah, it's always that added layer, I think, in memory, isn't it? Because we remember where we were and the feelings we had, but we also very often remember the smell of things, perhaps more strongly than other parts of that memory.
Yeah, yeah.
And were you the kind of kid that always had your nose in something? Were you always sniffing things?
Always. I remember my grandparents told me that I used to be in gardens with them and I was jumping from flower to flower. One of my first words was flower. I was going to smell flower and say flower. I write poetry about flowers as well. So, yes, in the beginning, it was about fragrance and emotion, aestheticism also.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what's more fitting for someone who grew up to be a perfumer than their first word being flower? I think that's a really beautiful story. Can you remember what your first fragrance was? Whether it was one that you bought for yourself or someone bought for you? Do you remember that?
Yeah, my first fragrance was Allure de Chanel. I remember when I smelled it for the first time in the shop. I didn't really like the first note. To be honest, at the beginning, it was more the Chanel, the brand, the advertising, the name Allure. So I think this is something for me. When I smelled the first note, it was a bit like benzyl acetate, and I didn't like too much. So, but I spray on my neck, on my arm. And after a few hours, when I came back, I forgot it was this perfume. And when I came back, I said, oh, that's fabulous! I love it. And then I came back to buy it. And then it was my perfume for quite a long time until the Egyptka actually, until I jumped to perfumer.
Yeah, and obviously your relationship with wearing perfume, I imagine, changed quite considerably when you started your training. Allure is such an interesting fragrance. It was my mother's fragrance, so I hold it very, very dear to my heart. But it's also one of the less spoken about Chanel fragrances, isn't it? It's a little bit of a kind of a deep cut in their catalogue.
Yeah, so yeah, I don't know why it's not. Maybe not more. I don't know. Maybe it has been discontinued. I don't know. But yeah, it's really something.
And at what point did you decide that you wanted to become a perfumer? Was that something that you knew about as you were growing up? Was it a profession you were familiar with? Or was there a sort of a moment where you discovered what perfumery was and thought, that's for me, I want to do that?
Actually, I'm not from a family of perfumer. My father, my grandfather was not at all in this business. First, I wanted to become a designer, an architect, and I used to smell, but I didn't know about this job. But when I was 15 years old, I remember my mother brings me a catalog of the different school. I was looking more creative school, and then we found Izipka, and then I saw that this is the job, and I said, is it a job? And I'm gonna be paid to create fragrance. And I knew from the beginning that it was the job of my dream.
And that's really interesting because I imagine there's so much overlap between those two professions, isn't there? Between an architect and a perfumer, because you're
Mhm.
crafting something completely from scratch. And, fragrance is quite architectural in a way. You're layering materials to form a structure. So it feels like those two things sort of go hand in hand in a strange way.
Yes, it's very similar work actually. It's really to you design order in your mind, and like you design a house or buildings. You use material like in fragrance, so it's very similar. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're both, artistic and technical professions. And you talk about your training at Isibka, and perfumery training is quite hardcore from my understanding. You spend a lot of time learning materials, learning them at different dosages. And can you talk a little bit about what was that training like for you? Was it tough but fun, or just tough but tough?
It's very long process to learn the ingredients. So Isipka and Givaudan Perfumery School are very different kind of approach. Isipka is more general because you also have chemistry, you also learn packaging, marketing, so everything which is turning around the perfume business, while the Givaudan Perfumery School is really focused around the perfumer job. And so I did both. I start with Isipka with an counterpart with the Givaudan. And so, yes, you learn the material, you learn how to create a perfume. So this at that time was for 2 years. While at Givaudan Perfumery School, the first 6 months is only working and memorizing the ingredients. So you start with the natural one, and then you go to the synthetic one. Then you create some accord, but just with 2 or 3 ingredients. You start to create the rose, lily of the valley, all the flower, and then all the family like a sheep, fougère. Givaudan Perfumery School is going much more deeply into the perfumer job. So it was 3 years after my 2 years of ISIPCA. And then, yes, you start to create fragrance. At the end of the school, you have to create your own fragrance.
Wow. And then you've been working with Givaudan since, and when you've been there, you've created a huge number of perfumes for brands like Narciso Rodriguez, Tom Ford, Calvin Klein, Jean Paul Gaultier. I could go on and on and on, many, many more. What stands out to you as work that you're really proud of that you've created for other brands?
I think mostly my work for Tom Ford and Narciso Rodriguez, and especially the ombre leather. I think for ombre leather, I really wanted to create a new leather with very elegant, which is both feminine and masculine, but made with Horace, so very elegant but wearable, because at that time the leather which was on the market was a bit harsh, a bit difficult to wear. So I really wanted to create something soft, a softer leather and elegant. So I think it's the one I'm the most proud. And if I can say a second one, Pure Musk for Narciso Rodriguez, also something I'm very proud of, and it's also a beautiful collaborative work with Monsieur Narciso Rodriguez, who is a beautiful person. We are working together very closely, and it's really something I absolutely love. Actually, I love to work with designer.
Yeah, because I think what's great about designers is they have a very distinct vision, don't they? And when you
Exactly.
look at a brand like Narciso Rodriguez, there's a very distinct olfactory vision there as well.
Exactly. And the common in these 2 brands is there is no test. It's really the designer. At that time, Tom Ford was in, I know he said, of course, but he choose, and same with Narciso, he choose. So it makes a very different approach in the creation of the perfume. It gives much more, I think, freedom for the perfumer. Even if, of course, you have, if I work with Tom Ford, I really have to stay in the Tom Ford, which is very different to Narciso Rodriguez kind of notes, but it's clear. And then you have freedom in this place. You don't have to follow trends, to go to gourmand because there's a trend of gourmand, to go to fruity, to over fruity because there's a trend of fruity. These people have a very smart vision, I would say. And for a perfumer, it's really great to work for people like this. It's really make a huge difference for me. And it's very, I have to say, it's very rare. This is the only one, actually. In the whole perfumery business, these 2, Tom Ford and Narciso Rodriguez, was the only one designer who was present in the process, in the development of the fragrance. This is why I think it's so different and so recognizable. I think when you smell a Narciso Rodriguez fragrance, you can recognize from the top. You know it's Narciso Rodriguez. You cannot put a fragrance of Narciso in another brand, and the other way around. Something of the other brand would never go into a bottle of Narciso Rodriguez, and same for Tom Ford, I would say. They have a very strong universe, and even more Narciso Rodriguez, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's when it really works, that link between fashion and fragrance is when you feel like the perfume is an olfactory distillation of what the brand looks like. That visual aesthetic is
Mhm.
brought into the brand. And it's interesting you use the word universe. I love that because it must be so fun and rewarding for you as a perfumer. Or I wonder, is it rewarding for you and fun as a perfumer to go in and just spend a bit of time in each of these different universes? And obviously each comes with its own parameters, but perhaps that's part of the excitement. It's like, okay, I've got to switch my brain a little bit now to think, if I got this brief from Narciso, I would create something different than if I got the same brief from Tom Ford, because the design language is so different.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Narciso, it's always around this heart of musk. So it's something very soft. It's a way to design a fragrance, which is like a balloon with a lot of heart and bottom note, which is mostly musk, of course. And while for Tom Ford, it's more bold and more rich in the ingredients. Both are, it's more abstraction with Narciso Rodriguez, I would say, while Tom Ford is more around ingredients. But both have, yeah, their own universe, and that's really a pleasure to work for them.
Yeah. And I know you're a traveler, and we'll get onto that when we
Mm.
start talking about LK. So you get to travel to Planet Tom Ford and Planet Narciso. every now and then, and that's lovely. And I have to say about ombre leather, the way you describe it as, you know, a new type of leather, I used to hate leather fragrances. I have to tell you this. I used to despise them. They're always too smoky, too tarry. Ombre leather is the fragrance that got me into leather. I love that fragrance so much. It's so comforting. It's sexy in the right way. It's a little bit cheeky, but it's just beautifully soft. Did you also do the Eau d'Ombre leather?
Yes, I did all Eau d'Ombre
Okay.
leather, Eau d'Ombre
Yeah.
leather perfume, and yes, Eau d'Ombre leather,
Yeah.
which is much more vanilla.
Yeah. So I don't want to derail this podcast by talking about Eau d'Ombre leather for 7 hours because I could easily do that. But that fragrance is so fun. I love that it's not quite leather. It's more like PVC. It's like plastic, you know,
Yeah.
the plastic pleather trousers. It's very sexy. And I think that's so cool. That kind of saffron, vanilla, milky. It's so cool. I love it. But I could wax lyrical about that forever. And that would be probably not that exciting a podcast for everybody. What I do want to move on to is LK. What's so unique about you as a perfumer is that you do all this wonderful work with Givaudan, creating for other brands. But in 2017, you did something really unexpected, which was you created your own perfume brand, LK. What inspired you to think, do you know what? I want to go do this. I want to do my own thing.
Yeah. Yeah, after creating fragrance for the other brand for many, many years, I really wanted to create my own signature because I have much more to say. As you say, I travel a lot. I wanted to tell about my travel, to tell about this splendid moment in my life. And also I wanted more freedom to explore different universe, to be able to overdose ingredients that I like. Yeah, it's. I think I was at the moment of my life. I was almost 40, and I really wanted to have this freedom in everything, not only in the creation of the perfume, but also creating the bottle, the name. It's an all artistic pieces. I mean, because it's not only the fragrance, and also I love to write. I love poetry. And for me, it was completely linked to create the fragrance and to write this story, to write about this imaginary heroine who is traveling. Of course, there is a lot of myself in it, and because it's me who is traveling. But for me, it was much easier to have this imaginary heroine because it makes a distance. You know, it's a bit like an author who give another name, and he write, even if it's something personal, he wrote under the name of under X. So he can have even more freedom because he can escape of himself, and it gives even more audacity, I think. And yeah, that's why I also didn't call my brand with my name. I wanted something to be bigger than me.
Yeah, and I think that storytelling with the brand is so strong. And you've talked about it. The brand kind of represents the idea behind it is this imaginary heroine who's an explorer who traverses the world to bring beautiful scent to people. And what I think is really, really clear about your brand, but also I think different, is it feels like a very feminine brand. It celebrates women. Was that really a conscious part of it, that you wanted to go and celebrate the female pioneers of the world?
Yeah, I think through my brand, it was for me a way to also go even deeper into audacity, to find this freedom. And yes, it's not a feminine brand only because the fragrance is
Yeah.
both for men, male and women. But yes, I wanted to celebrate. I wanted to invite the woman, to have more audacity, to believe more in themselves, because I find across so many women, talented women that don't believe in herself. And I want, in the name Elaka in French, it is Elaka. It means you can do it. Elaka, Elaka le faire. You can do it yourself. It means, yeah, why not? Why I'm the only one female perfumer who have created my brand? Do you imagine? I'm the only one perfumer, I mean, master perfumer. That's why I don't pretend to be better than others. I think it's a question of self-confidence and to believe in yourself. And so yes, it's an invitation to other women. And I know they are, because I hear some young perfumer who want to create the brands, and I'm happy to open the way to other women, because I think no, they think, oh, okay, she did it, I can do it too. So I'm very happy to also be a kind of pioneer in this opening a new way to other women to also create their own brand.
I love that. It's an invitation, an opening of a door. And you talk about audacity. Do you feel, because you are, as you say, the only female master perfumer to have created your own brand, do you feel like that was quite an audacious move to do that, a bold move?
Yeah, because it's a lot of work. It's when you create your own business, you can have success, of course, but you also can fall and you have the look of the other perfumer, the other person. So it's a big risk, and I think this is the reason why most people don't do it, because it's very comfortable to be a perfumer at Givaudan or at Féminité or at IFF. You have a good salary. It's a lot of work. It's not easy. It's a lot of stress also, but it's comfortable. At the end, you have a salary, you have your win, but I wanted to pay the price for freedom. I arrived at a moment, it's a bit like my soul inside myself was shouting inside me, like, knock, 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 do something. It's not the way I want to work. And today I continue to work. I'm still at Givaudan, working always with Narciso Rodriguez that I love, and I really absolutely love my work with him and with other projects and other clients as well. So I share my time with Elake and Givaudan. But I also, in my routine at Givaudan, I also impose my way of working to have time, also to refuse projects. When you're young perfumer, and of course you want to win everything, so you accept everything, and then you're too busy, and then if you're a bit talented, you arrive at a time you have so much work, and you cannot concentrate yourself in each of the perfume. And the beauty of a perfume, we were talking about ombre leather, you cannot imagine the hours it took me to create this fragrance. It took time to create beautiful things, and it's not in the rush and working 15 projects at the same time that you're going to crack something like ombre leather. To crack a beautiful fragrance, you need time, and I impose now my rhythm. But it's difficult. It's very difficult to impose my rhythm. But that's otherwise I prefer to leave this job than to create things that I don't care.
Yeah, you're crafting your own creative world, aren't you? And
Yes.
saying, I want a piece of this, and I want a piece of this, and I want the time
Mm.
to do the things I want to do. And that is all audacious in itself as an artist, to say, do you know what? I'm not going to follow the rat race. I want to
Yes.
do a bit of both, and I can have both of those things. I can do both.
Yes, exactly. And always what I say is everything I've created is in the top 20. I don't care about creating 15 fragrance. I want to create 3 maybe, but the 3 will be in the top 20. And this is the 3 you will remember about. That's the only thing that is important for me. So better even for everybody, for my team and Givaudan, I always say that let's do 2, 3 fragrance this year. Believe me, it will be in the top 20, and it will have a prize and awards, and people will talk about. That's what I want to do. I don't want to do 100. Some perfumer do that. That's not my things.
Yeah. It's focusing on the quality, the long-lasting impact, rather than the quantity.
Yes, and also in the quality of the relationship with people.
Hmm.
Clients that are honest and authentic, and with fidelity also. Yes, and yeah, I think I also impose this to work with valuable people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think as a creative person, that's where you find your joy, is in those creative partnerships with people.
Mhm.
And that's where you find the joy. Sometimes it's not about what you've made, it's actually about the journey of getting there and who you interacted with and how you work together. And sometimes you build lifelong relationships, don't you, from the people that you work with, which is wonderful. Now, I know with Ella K, a lot of the fragrance is inspired by travels, and I know you travel a lot. So I was really curious about, what's your favorite place to travel to, and what does it smell like, most importantly?
There is so many places I love to travel, but let's say Japan was a really beautiful place, and also culture is very interesting. I love this place of Sagano, and I portrait it in Poème de Sagano. Love this place because this is this narrow path with a wind that is going through the bamboo, and You can see the fleeting ray of the sun through the bamboo, and with the wind, it's moving, and it's really like a 50 shade of green. This is a very beautiful moment I wanted to portray. I love Botswana. When I created Cri du Kalahari, was something amazing. The desert of the Kalahari Desert, an entire night in the sleeping bags. And it was also amazing.
And it's like journaling, but with perfume in a way, isn't it? It's rather than taking a photo or, writing a journal entry or taking a snapshot, and you're doing that with perfume. How do you do that when you're in that place? I know, and we'll talk about the kind of the ScentTrek technology and stuff that you use when you're doing, some of the specific fragrances, but do you sit with the place? Do you take photos? Do you spend a lot of time sniffing while you're there, or do you journal? How do you think, well, I'm distilling, Kyoto or Botswana or Sagano in a fragrance? How do you approach that?
Actually, when I'm traveling, at the beginning, I don't know what I'm going to portray. It's not something that I prepare. I go to a place because I love the place, and then I see what I discover. Sometimes there is nothing so interesting in terms of fragrance, so it has not been portrayed into fragrance. And sometimes it's completely evident. For example, when I create Reflet sur l'Okavango, I was in the Okavango River in the little Mokoro, which is a small boat, very, very small, like half a trunk. And I was very afraid of the crocodile and the hippos, which was in the Okavango water. And I was with my young kids at that time. And I remember I was watching in the water, looking where there is a crocodile. And I was, what I'm doing here with my kids? Are you completely crazy? And since I was looking into the water, I see the reflection of my head and an acacia behind my head. And I had the smell of the acacia that is coming and the image like an impressionist painting reflecting into the water. It was really beautiful. And at that moment, the fear completely disappeared. I just had the smell and this painting impression into the water. Then I continue my route until the lodge, and then I saw a dragonfly moving in the air. And I was, oh my God, that's that moment. This is a suspended moment I'm looking for. And give me shaving just to talk about. But it's like this, With the lacquer, I always say it's not only me. I believe in God. I believe in something superior. And I'm very confident that the moment will appear if there is a moment, if it is the moment. If it's not the moment, doesn't care. I'm not obliged to create. This is good with the lacquer. I have my own time. I decide when I launch a fragrance. I decide when it's finished. There is never a rush. It is not finished, we don't launch. And that's it. And I'm always very confident that when it have to come, it will come. And this is the moment. So in general, it's really magic. At that moment, everything rides together. I have the smell, then you start with the acacia. Then the whole story, when we arrived, they serve us an amarula. It's a liqueur made with amarula, and it was very sweet, a bit like Baileys, something. So I bring this also into the fragrance. And yes, pieces after pieces, everything go together. And I work with artists. I work with Sanjiro Nakata. It's a Japanese artist who is also drawing. I tell him the story, and then he draw with his own style. And so each perfume is figured with a painting. And yes, the ScentTrek for the acacia, I didn't do the one which was next to the water because my ScentTrek was not with me at that moment. It was in the car. But I did the few days after in the trees, and I was on the top of the Jeep. It's on my Instagram if you go back to 2018. And so I go to the top of my Jeep and I did the ScentTrek of the acacia.
I love that. On the go with the ScentTrek, ready to go whenever you need it.
The last one was Amber K, and with Amber K, I did even the ScentTrek of my lover's skin because it has a beautiful smell. Believe me, so when we say I can't smell it. In French, we say je peux pas le sentir. So smell of a person is so important. My lover have such beautiful smell, beautiful skin. Drink it, don't smoke, and I don't know if it's for that, but. And that's why I did the ScentTrek of his skin, and it's part of Amber K. So it gives a sensual note of Amber K. And I did also a ScentTrek of a spider lily, which is a flower in Punta Cana and Havana.
So let's talk Amber K and ScentTrek for a moment, because this new collection, Collection K, blends the art of fragrance with the science of Givaudan's ScentTrek technology. How does ScentTrek work, and how do you utilize that for the collection?
So the ScentTrek, I use it when I'm traveling. I can capture everything that smells during my travel. It can be flowers, but it can be skins. It can be atmosphere, like Sagano. Then depending if the smell is strong or not, normally it's 2 hours, but if the smell is not very strong, you can let it a bit more. And if it's very strong, maybe 1 hour is enough. You place the flower into the glass, and you close carefully the glass, and then you have 2 filters you put in the glass next to the flower, and there is a system of pumping. It's pumping the air, and then the molecule of the flower, for example, is going to be fixed into the filter. And then after 2 hours, you can send the filter to the lab, and with a neutral solvent, it will bring the molecule with a solvent, and then it's a chromatography. They inject in a chromatography, and it gives you the map of the olfactive map of the ingredients. So it will give the molecule with the quantity, and then you can recreate the smell. Whatever the smell. You can do with the smokes, cigarette smokes, anything.
So it brings an element of realness into abstract compositions. And so if we take Amber K, the latest launch, for example, that's your analysis of your lover's skin. I hope he didn't complain too much when he had to sit there for 2 hours while you were analysing him. But obviously, you've built that fragrance to have that smell, but you've built stuff around it to give it that kind of abstractness, that kind of artistic impression. So can you talk me a little bit through this fragrance? I've just sprayed some on because it's so comforting and soft is how I describe it.
Is it Amber K? This is the
Yes,
one you
Amber K, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. When I use the ScentTrek, but the ScentTrek is just a tool. First, data is not complete. You really have to use your nose as a perfumer to really reconstitute the smell. And then when you have the smell, K is not just a bibliothèque of smell of my travels, of course. It's really like an impressionist painting. I mean, it's also bring my sensation, my emotion. Amberka was a moment of my life, was traveling alone, and I had a lot of fun traveling. So I don't know if you see the campaign with this woman in the car having fun, having parties. So a cigar, she's smoking. So there is this confidence. For me, it's also a fragrance that gives you lots of confidence, both for male or female, because it's very tobacco also, made for the tobacco. There is cocoa also, cacao from Punta Cana. Very vanilla, very ambery, of course.
Yeah, but there's a warmth and there's a dryness, and you get that kind of the green facet of the tobacco that comes through, and it gives that kind of that a little bit of bitterness, because amber can be very sweet if it goes too vanilla, too benzoate. This doesn't. This is dry. It feels a little bit cedary, a little bit woody. You know, it's got that
very woody cedar wood.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
woody ambery, also ambery, but in the dry woods, very with lots of vibration. I didn't want to do because amber often is very classic. When you see amber, it's always the same kind of amber. I really wanted to create something different, modern, and something very sexy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very human, like, because the cedar has that kind of slight sweatiness to it in a good way. It gives you that kind of the smell. It's a smell of a beautiful fragrance on someone's skin. You get the human element of that. It's really beautiful. I love hearing that story about how you're taking something real and then you're interpreting it, and almost in a painting. You don't want to take a snapshot and take a photo and go, this is exactly what I was there. It's taking it further. That's the artistic endeavor, isn't it? It's about taking it further and making something different.
Yeah, I love this sentence from Baudelaire when he say perfume, colors, and sounds response to each other in Les Fleurs du Mal. I don't know in English. Flower.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, this is exactly the way I'm working. It's using all my senses. I'm a synesthetic person. I didn't know when I was young, because for me, you birth with this and you think everybody have that. Finally, little by little, realize I have something a bit different. That synesthesia, I have the ability to transform any senses into smell. I think most perfumers have it too. Yeah, something strong with me. I can Yes, smell and color. I translate immediately to smell. For me, it's very easy.
Yeah, it's that you're creating a richer picture, aren't you? Because you're not just creating a smell. And I think this is the thing where what's the difference between a perfume and a smell? Because if you created the exact same smell of a place, it would be a bit unsettling. It wouldn't feel like something you could wear because it's not a perfume, and you're taking that and translating it into perfume.
Exactly.
And I wonder, because obviously you work at Givaudan, you do your work with brands, and that's a very different process. You'll have your evaluator or account manager who's translating between the brand a lot of the time, and the people who ultimately decide when the fragrance is done, is finished, will be the brand. So I wonder, how different is it for you when you're creating for LK? Obviously, it's a lot more free, but what's that process for you? And how do you know then when it's done? Is that just something that you know?
Very interesting question. The next one, next fragrance, I was continue to work in. It's you don't know yet because it's not yet on the market, and that's really my lover who said to me, "You got it," because I was entering the taxi. We go to a dinner with his mother, and everybody, the driver, his mother, and him. Oh, that's so fabulous! But I was still working, and I have time actually because in January I take 1 year to create the fragrance, and then after that I continue to work. And he said to me, "But you got it. Why you continue to work?" And I see if I can make it better. It's not as good as the one you did. So I said, okay. So I came back to. So sometimes it's good to have somebody, around you to tell you, stop it. No, you got it. Because as a perfumer, and also I'm a very hard worker person and very precise. I'm working very much to have the best. So yeah, it was nice to have him to tell me that's finished. You got it. And then I create a second one. So next year you will have two, because the first one was very rapid to create. I think also it's after years your more abilities to create rapidly what you have in mind. And yes, sometimes to answer your question, for example, when I create Angel Nova, actually my first ID was for Elake. I create a Mémoire de Dysonin Intense at that time, so it was a rose, very gourmand. And then I tested in at Givaudan because there was the opportunity to do an internal test. And I saw it test better than Good Girl, which is something which was very hard to beat. And then I said, oh my God, that's such a big things. And I was at the beginning of Elake. And then I decided to remove from Elake and to put on the Angel Nova. We had a brief to create a rose, and the band was Good Girl. And I said, okay, it's a bit too easy. Then because it was testing so well, I think, no, not for my brand. It's too easy. If it's a good result in test, it's not original enough. And so I bring it to Mugler, and that was a huge success. No, it's a long time ago, but yeah. And so sometimes it happened. I create for Elake, and then it's moved to my brands, to other of my clients. It's not really in the other way around. It's not possible because for Elake, I give me a lot of money that I don't necessarily have for my clients. But in the other one, I can start from something I did create for Elake, and then make it at the price of my clients. I adapt, let's say. So it's more this way, because for Elake, I create not one, I create sometimes 3, 4 fragrance. So I will launch one or two. So the one I don't launch, sometimes if it's appropriate to a brief, I make it more easy, more
Consumer friendly, I suppose. Is maybe,
consumer.
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, absolutely.
because Elaka is a high perfumery, luxury perfumery, while Prestige is have to please most people.
Yeah, and that's quite beautiful in a way, that the fragrance finds its right home in the end when it ends up in the right place. And I thought it was quite interesting what you were saying about when you were talking about being told the fragrance is done, it's done. Why are you still playing with it? I think people, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this could be a really wrong assumption around perfumers, but I talk to a lot of perfumers, and one of the things I think people don't quite realize about perfumery is some of the biggest skills that perfumers have is, I think, curiosity is one. And I think the second one is it's problem solving. It's like you're trying to solve a problem. And I think sometimes when you're trying to solve a problem, you can kind of go past the solution almost, can't you? Because your mind is curious. Do you think, is that an accurate summary? Have I got it completely wrong there around perfumers?
yes, I have something in my mind, and then I have to realize into smell. But also the complexity when you work for clients is that you have many people to suit. I mean, first, this is the evaluator who is working with you at Givaudan. She also have her own taste, her own nose, because everybody have a different nose inside with different receptors. We don't smell necessarily exactly the same thing. So you have to please her first, and then the sales at Givaudan in number 3, and then the client, and then even in the client there is many people. You develop with one person, then after 6 months is going to show the fragrance to somebody else that have never started to smell, and then give another comment. So it's at the end, you feel like to be a technical person that please A, B, C, D, E. And that, okay, so you forgot to please yourself because it's one too much more person. And that's the thing that is a bit tricky. And I think this is the reason why sometimes fragrances are not so, let's say, like, have signature, because there is too many, when you say you have too many cook in the kitchen. That's why. This is why when it's with one person, like we're talking about Narciso Rodriguez or Tom Ford, even if there is some person in the middle, it's the one who is taking the decision is also the one who smelled at the beginning, you know? So it follows the process in the beginning. In other way of working, it's too many different people. And I think because everybody is afraid, they have to validate everything. But at the end, for the perfumer, it's a bit complicated to please to everybody. You lose your soul.
Yeah.
It's like in love. If you really want to please, it's you have to be yourself. I think this is the best way to please somebody, is to be authentic, to be yourself, and you have the way to. I will say the word, to prostitute yourself. That's that I didn't like in the way of working. The kind of prostitution. You have to forget what you think sometimes.
Yeah, and so Elake is a way of you reclaiming
Yes.
yourself, reclaiming the artist in
Yes.
you, because it's freer.
Either you like or you don't like, I don't care. I'm not based to everybody like it. It has not been created for that. It's a place where I express my emotion, my way of seeing life, of my psychology. Also, there is a little bit of philosophy of life, and yes, it's a bit like writing a book. That's it. But what I'm sure about is if you do things with your heart and soul, it will touch people. Not all the planet, not everybody, but the one you will touch, you will touch them very deeply. And that's what I'm looking for. And that I think with Elake, those who like Elake, they really love. They don't just like, they love, and they don't love only the fragrance, they also love what is behind, the story behind, the poetry, the subtle message I share. And that's I like.
That's the beauty of scent, isn't it? Because, whatever you create might become that person's signature fragrance or their favorite fragrance, or a fragrance they associate with the happiest days in their lives, and it has a lifelong impact on that person. I know we talked a little bit about what Elake's got coming in the future, so we know there's going to be lots of more fragrances coming, and that's really exciting. I can't wait to smell the one that everybody loved in the taxi. I'm looking forward to that. So instead of asking you what's next, what I'll ask is, what is one place in the world that you've not been to yet that you'd love to visit, and maybe, if the moment's there, because the moment has to be there, maybe create a fragrance for?
Yeah, I think maybe Antarctic. I think this will be something very interesting. I don't know. I would love to go to Galapagos too. I want to go with my kids. Yeah, it looks fantastic.
Well, I can't think of any Arctic-inspired fragrances or anyone from the Galapagos, and I know what we've well established is that you're a pioneer, so if anyone's going to do it, I know that it will be you. Sonia, this has been such a joy, such a really interesting conversation. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see what you do in the future.
Yes, thank you so much. It was really a pleasure. Thank you, Thomas.
What an episode to end the series on, eh? I loved how candid Sonia was about both the joys and pains of being a perfumer working for one of the big houses. But it does sound like she's managed to strike the right artistic balance for her with Elake, and I think nobody really approaches perfume in the same way that she does. She's a unique olfactory voice, and I'm really excited to see what she does next, both for Elake and also for other brands via her work at Givaudan. Now, if you want to know more about Sonia, you can follow her on Instagram at Constant Sonia Perfumer. You can also follow Ella K at Ella K Parfums Paris. The brand's website is ellakparfums.com, and I'll put all of those details in the show notes for you. So that's it. End of season 2. I have really loved putting this podcast together. It really is such a joy to speak to such fascinating people about perfume. And I hope you've enjoyed listening to it as much as I've enjoyed recording it and putting it all together. We've had 2 seasons this year, which is just blows my mind, with just over 20 episodes across the 2. And if you've loved what you've heard, then please consider subscribing and sharing, and also leaving a rating or a review. It does really help boost the podcast, and I would be most grateful. If you want to follow me on Instagram, you can at Making Sense Make Sense. I am also on TikTok and Substack with the same handles. I'd like to say a massive thank you to Carium, my sponsor for this season. This season simply wouldn't have happened without their support, and I'm really pleased to be working with them. Carium, like me, are all about making fragrance discovery easier, and their innovative AI solution, the Scent Sommelier, offers an entirely new way to explore fragrance by translating scent into language. You can find out more at www.carium.com. Thank you to the Carium team for all of their support this year. And one last thank you to you, my dear listeners. Thank you for joining me each week and being a part of our fragrant conversations. I will be back again in 2026 for season 3, but until then, I wish you a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Let's leave the last word to Sonia, who will tell us all about the fragrance she has an emotional connection with. After all, fragrance is an emotional art form. I'll see you very soon.
I love the fragrance Féminité du Bois from Serge Lutens. I would have loved to create it. I think it was fabulous and was one of the first fragrance was both feminine and masculine. I love the gender fluid feeling of this fragrance. For me, it was also traveling. When I smell it, I'm somewhere else. And I find it very mysterious, sensual. Yeah, it was a bit like magic. I think when I start perfumery, this is one of the first fragrances I wanted to understand how it has been made.